Okay, we're going to start with being on a Macintosh or on a Windows system. And on a Macintosh to install VirtualBox, which is what we're going to start with here. Okay, I just have to do the install of VirtualBox, which is actually pretty simple. On Windows, you would have a thing that you would click on and walk through the installation of VirtualBox. Once you get VirtualBox done, we will do Ubuntu and install that. So this is the Macintosh version of installation, and there's an installer for VirtualBox. We're just going to set up a virtual system and do this on Linux the whole time. So we want to go OK here. And this is certainly not the only way. If you were on a Linux system, you'd be able to just do this with directly on the Linux system to install Postgres. Okay, I had to go tweak my security preferences to allow it to install, but it did install. And when it got done, I went over to Applications and ran it. On a Windows system, you'd go down and find VirtualBox and run it, and it gives you a window that looks like this. It's basically the same on both operating systems. You want to click New and name it something that starts with UB something. In my case, UB18 will be just fine. I have a UB17 already on this system. And I've selected Linux here in the type, and you want 64-bit. And you need about 8 gig of space for this to be a decent system of memory. Hopefully that is not going to crimp whatever laptop you're working on. And you want to create a virtual disk when it does this. I just picked the default, which is their internal format. I'm not trying to port this to some other virtualization tool. I dynamically allocate it. That means that it allocates 2 meg at a time, but it will grow it as necessary as you use space. And I'll put it at 30 gig for the size for this. And that will give me plenty of space. And as soon as I have gotten it done, I want to go down here in somewhere so I can mount the system. To mount the virtual system. Storage controller. The optical drive right there is empty. Choose a disk image. And when you choose a disk image, you want to pick the ISO for Ubuntu that you loaded. And I believe I can just go over here and on a Mac just drag that in. And I actually clicked Add here, and then we can get to our downloads directory. And I put these all in a single directory here. So here's the one we want. We want to open that guy, and we'll just select it and choose it. And now we have that inserted into the virtual drive. At this point, we are ready to click Start and run this thing. Now, if you get this error message about failed to open a session for the virtual machine, you can click on Details and find that you get this. The solution to that is to go into Security and Privacy. And I've gone from the main plane over here to Security and Privacy. I'm going to unlock it right here, which requires a password. And then I'm going to get this Allow down here, Oracle. Okay, and I click that to allow it. Hide that away again. And I believe we are good to go at this point. We have, again, in Security and Privacy, we're going to need to check, now that it is actually running, and restart it. And, okay, I have checked this thing so that it can get keyboard input. And it would like to access the microphone. Okay. We'll get this out of the way. And there's a couple things that it pops up that's from the virtual operating system running, and we get yes. Okay. I don't know if you heard the pleasant sound of it starting up Ubuntu, but you're getting an Ubuntu, and we will do install Ubuntu. English, continue. Continue. We will let it download things as we are going. And this is going to actually take a while to install, so I am going to periodically skip forward in time. So your installation will take longer than this if you are doing it this way. But I will do that. I don't care if this system is encrypted or anything like that. So we'll just let it erase and take the whole disk. And it has found the correct time zone. There we go. And it's partway through copying files, but it's also going to have to download and update at least once. Okay, when you get to restart now, click that. It will restart the computer, eject the virtual disk. You see that disappeared right there? And then you press enter. And that should give you, yes, a virtual machine running on your system. With it installed on a disk that we can then install other things on. And click your username, enter your password. And I have no desire to click to any of these things. Okay. Right now, what I want to do is click here and get a terminal up. Okay. And if you're on a Macintosh, this thing has some nasty assumptions about using a mouse with 3 buttons. So I recommend you find a 3-button mouse and click it in and use that so that you have the ability to do right clicks, because otherwise these things are going to not make you very happy. Okay, and this is the software updater. And although it said it would download and update stuff, you're going to need to do that at least once to get things going. And you can also do that from the command line with sudo and apt-get update and then apt-get upgrade, which is the way I usually do that. But since this is a fresh system, we'll just let it go through it in the GUI once here. Well, if you're like me, you get to this point where it says restart now, because it updated the microcode and a new kernel, and you get to restart it one more time. And as soon as it's ready to run again, go ahead and log back in. And the first thing that I want is a terminal up, so I'll click on terminal as soon as I'm logged in. And now we're going to actually go to the notes, and I want to do an apt-get update so that I can make certain my system is up to date with everything before I do this install. And enter a password for sudo, which is your password, not the root password, but it might. And it's a good idea right before you do a major install like this to actually go and just do that update. It didn't find anything. But the next one is where it's going to install the database, and that's pretty important. And say yes if you actually want it to install at that point. And it is off and running. Now use sudo to actually connect to the Postgres account. And when I do that, that takes me over to the other account. And I should be able to do PSQL, and I am in. I actually have installed a database and gotten it up and running. You do \Q to exit out of PSQL to get back to the command prompt. And I can actually, at this point, move on to creating users. Exit 0 would take me out of Postgres back to my account on the system. But I'd like to create a user. And the one I want to add is one that is for me. and that created a user. So once you get Linux up and going, it is pretty quick to get this actually set up. It is not a huge time sink. And we want to create a database.